Welcome, everyone, to your quantum journey. I am so excited to be with you today. Super excited to be with our guest, Miss Debbie Sullivan, owner of Mindful Living in Paducah. Debbie is a local practitioner with over 10 years of dedicated experience in diverse energy modalities, including hypnosis, havening, Reiki, integrated energy therapy. She is so passionate about her work, her clients, and she continues a pursuit of knowledge, ensuring that she continually enhances her ability to support her clients effectively. She integrates the most innovative techniques into her practice. I love saying that I'm a student of Miss Debbie Sullivan. Welcome to your quantum journey.
Good morning. Hello,
Hi.
everyone.
So happy to have you. So that was a mouthful. 10 years of experience, all of these different types of modalities. For some of our viewers that might not be familiar, can you help us to understand, maybe is there a common thread that kind of weaves all of those modalities together?
Yes, energy.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of people are hearing about energy. Maybe they're seeing it on TikTok videos. They're starting to see things, come through on their social media feed. How can people better understand what is energy? How does it work in the body?
Well, you could think about energy as a flow. You could think about a river flowing through your body, and that is your energy. And at times, your energy can become stuck or just moving erratically, not flowing smoothly through you um, because of different situations or traumas in your life or just whatever's going on. And people will come when they're feeling a little bit unbalanced in ways or with all the chaos in the universe right now, especially on this planet. It's a little bit
Absolutely.
it's a little bit hard to figure out what's going on, and so we can look at rebalancing your chakras and looking at your energy field and just finding out what's happening with you.
I love that so much because people are beginning to look for other solutions outside of what maybe the pharmaceutical industry offers. They're looking at more holistic alternatives. And you being a local practitioner, we don't live in some of the bigger metro cities where, you have a holistic healing center on every corner. You've been doing this for a long time. Do you see that more people are starting to explore these alternative options?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, and it's wonderful to see people opening up to new ideas and accepting that yes, we are all energy and we can make changes ourselves.
I know that you are a fellow practitioner of hypnosis. I also am a practitioner. We share ideas. When I'm working with clients, I see them begin to connect the dots. Oh, these things cause this in my body. My thoughts, my beliefs actually impact me. What have you seen through your work in hypnotherapy? And first of all, let's just, destigmatize it a little bit. It's not like it used to be. It's not like, you've got a clock watch up and you're doing the pendulum swing and people are, that passing out. It's not that. It's different. It's really just getting into a relaxed state and being able to tap into the subconscious and to ways of thinking. So what do you see when you're working with clients in terms of how, kind of getting into this more meditative state? What things are they able to tap into and maybe even fix in the body?
That's a great question. You are in a very light trance when you're working with me, and that's for any type of hypnosis that we're doing. A lot of times, the first questions people will ask, "Are you going to make me quack like a duck?" No,
Right.
that's not. That's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
I'm not.
You're going to hear everything that I say. Some very interesting things have happened in hypnosis. People will receive information from their own higher guidance about what's happening with them and their body. We have had situations where people have relived a past trauma and have been able to help them clear that trauma energetically so that it is no longer affecting their life now. We've had people have traumas in past lifetimes that they have seen and were able to resolve that trauma through hypnosis, and it's no longer affecting them. So I've seen
It's
a great
incredible.
many things happen.
It's incredible. You touched on something that maybe some of our viewers go, "Oh, I don't know how I feel about that," and that's past lives. I too didn't always believe in it. Of course, when I became a student, I began to open my mind. When I became a practitioner, I saw it. I see it when I'm working with clients. For those that maybe are interested in learning more about what does it mean to begin to open yourself up to the possibility of past lives or reincarnation, do you have any advice on how they can begin to open themselves up and not feel like maybe that's a conflict in other beliefs they may hold dear and sacred?
There's some great books out there on past lives. Alba Weinman on YouTube shares a lot of her past life videos that she does. You can learn a lot from those. I mean, just imagining that, where do all your traits come from? You know, why do I have this happening in my life at this time? To me, just the simple thought about why are all these things occurring in repetition? Why do I see these patterns in my family? Can lead to the suggestion of a past life, a past lifetime. Think about your ancestors.
I love the way your eyes light up. It's the same way that mine light up when I talk about it because the, you don't want to use the word healing because we're not talking about, a physical kind of medicine, but the impact, the lasting impact that I see on individuals who come in and they say, "Oh, wow, this is why my body manifested this illness." To understand that it isn't always about what medication we need to take. There are holistic things that we can do to help ease where energy is stuck in the body that will then manifest as illness later on. To begin putting all these pieces in place, it is such an epiphany for people. It really is life changing. Would you agree?
I agree. And there's a great book out there called The Body Keeps Score. Just to look at things on this level, the body holds trauma whether we realize it or not, whether we're conscious of it or not, from past traumas. And so you can influence that by just sitting in meditation and asking, where do I feel this trauma in my body? Or doing a body scan in a meditation of looking to see where a stuck energy might be in your body. And then we can release that or help you release that through sound, through tone, through the intention of moving that energy out of your body.
That is so fascinating. And I've seen you in action. I happen to be a student, as I mentioned, of your integrated energy class. And that is really where we kind of get into how you move the body. How can people better understand what this integrated energy technique really does?
I would say the basic for all energy therapy is intention, like a prayer, if you will. You're setting your intention about what you want to have happen. So by placing your hands or just in your mind, visualizing the person in front of you or yourself or part of your body that you want to send energy to, using your attention, visualize that in your mind. If there's a pain there, visualize a color perhaps that means healing for you or that means cooling for you and send it to that area.
So you mentioned things that are specific to individuals, and you also mentioned why do we have preferences and traits, things that we like, things that we inherently don't like, where does that come from? So when people are really beginning to examine their lives, why do I love the color yellow? Why do I tend to wear only black clothing? Can you give them any ideas on how they can begin to look at these habits and traits and then work that into some type of an energy practice? How can they be more intentional just beginning by observing? Any tips on how they can do that?
You said the word by observing. How do I feel when I put this color on versus another color? How do I feel when I use these words instead of these words? Pay attention to how your body feels.
I love that. And, a lot of the ancient belief systems are kind of coming back into the mainstream. They knew these things. They understood the power of the chakras in the body, as you mentioned. They understood that words speak things into existence. As you mentioned a moment ago, your intention, the words you're speaking, the thoughts that you have are bringing things into existence. How do you feel? Um, you know, how can people begin to connect some of those ancient practices with modern day living? We don't live, as they did in ancient times. We have things that keep us busy and distracted. How can we begin to bring in some of these ancient practices of stillness, of quieting the mind, of observing, of paying attention to our thoughts? Any ideas on that?
Sure, a simple meditation. And a lot of people feel like, oh, I can't calm my mind. There's no way I can calm my mind. Well, that's okay. A lot of people have a problem with that, but you can do a guided meditation. You can let someone lead you through a forest or walk down the beach. You can record your own meditation if you like and re-listen to it every day. And if you can just spend even 5 minutes, perhaps just doing a breathing technique, inhale with a longer exhale for 5 minutes, that'll help calm your body. And once you find this calmness, you will want it to grow. You will want to spend more time there. And
Addictive.
it will manifest itself.
Absolutely. So we're using some words that some people might describe as woo-woo, right? We hear that term all the time.
I
When
do.
we say when we say meditation, people think, of the guru on the mountaintop or the Tibetan monk, right? What if somebody is just really starting to explore some of these concepts? Are there ways that you can maybe encourage them? You mentioned a guided meditation, which is actually how I started because I too was like, I've never meditated a day in my life. Yoga, what's that? So for me, guided meditations were a great way to start. If somebody is still a little bit reluctant, any tips on how they can begin to quiet their mind, how they can kind of get into that space? Is there a certain frequency of music? Or I know in your space you have drums and you have tuning forks and all these different tools to kind of help the body begin to get into a space where it can kind of calm itself. So what are your top go-tos?
Absolutely. And frequency music, you mentioned that. I would look at the different frequency musics on YouTube or wherever you get your music and choose one that resonates with you. Choose the
Okay.
one that feels the best for you. When I first started, the thing that got me into the flow was yoga.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just wanted to know everything that my teacher knew. I was drawn to that, and that was my meditation. Some people might have a hobby that is their meditation that stills their mind. If they do a handiwork, that's where their focus and their concentration goes to for a period of time. That can be a meditation for them. You can have a walking meditation in your backyard or a park, wherever you like. It doesn't have to be a structured thing the way everybody thinks it has to be. You find what resonates for you because that's the thing that you'll keep doing.
I love that. I go to the lake almost every afternoon. Any afternoon that it's pretty enough, I take the 5 minute drive down to the lake and I started journaling. I noticed that my dreams were becoming very vivid. And as you mentioned a moment ago, there was really a key thing that you said. Listen to the different types of music and find what resonates with you because you'll find that the things that you like are the things that are there, they're going to benefit you the most. So if you're having certain types of dreams, maybe begin journaling. If you're listening to certain types of music and it makes you feel a certain way, listen to more of it. Do you feel that really the key to all of this is finding what brings you joy, what makes you happy? Do you think that that's kind of a common thread in all these things we're talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you can allow the divine to flow through you in what resonates from your heart, that is true peace.
Is that where people get this saying, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life? Yeah. So, how can people begin to I'm trying to be careful with my words here. I know that you work with clients like I do, and by the time they get to us, they are so overwhelmed. they're so frustrated. In many cases, their illness has already really set in the body. If people are there and they feel like they're so far away from being able to find this joy that we're talking about, what can they begin doing to take small steps to, shorten the gap between where they are and where they want to be? Maybe they've experienced a loss. A lot of people have been experiencing losses. Any ideas or suggestions on how they can begin to get there?
Baby steps. Baby steps. And basically, taking care of yourself and putting yourself first is huge because we are so good at putting everything and everybody else before us and neglecting our own body and field.
Right.
And so, if you can make time and space for yourself and do the things that bring you pleasure and bring you joy and open yourself up to the frequencies that are here to flow through you to help you with whatever you're going through, then yes, you can find a greater peace no matter what it is.
I've heard some people say it starts as simple as walking outside barefoot on the ground,
Yes.
allowing the natural energy of the earth just to come up into your body. It's almost like a cleansing. It's a cleansing of the energy. Is that your experience as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. Walk out into the backyard, take your shoes off, ask Mother Earth to receive you, to take from you what you no longer need. And she will.
And those are new terms for a lot of people. Even thinking of the earth as a sentient being is a rather new concept because it's not something that's taught, certainly in the Western world. Over in the Eastern cultures, they believe this and they are very connected to not only Earth herself, but all of the elements in nature in a much different way. Almost, we could, I think, compare it, which I know you're very connected to, the Native American connection to all of nature and animals and plants. I think we're starting to see that come back. Do you feel there's a reconnection?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there needs to be. How could Mother Earth not be alive? She is
Right.
supporting all of us.
And so if people want to begin exploring that and they're looking for ways to do that. There's always been jokes about tree huggers. We know this, right? We might as well just laugh about it. But that's kind of the era that we grew up in. People made fun of people that did that, or they wore Birkenstock shoes, right? I mean, that was kind of the joke. But really, that's where the wisdom comes from. I think that people that understand that those are sentient beings and that there is a respect that's necessary, going back into the Native American culture, which you and I visited on before, there was a lot of prophecy about the time we live in now and the connection that must be had once again. Do you believe that we're kind of seeing some of those Native American prophecies play out in this time that we're living in?
I do. And, a gentle practice is to go out and a walk in nature and touch the trees. Ask the tree if it has anything to share with you. The Native Americans believe that the trees are the wisdom keepers.
And the roots and the mycelium that connects the root systems, when you really look at um, the records that the ancient cultures left us, those are the belief systems that are just now kind of coming back and being, I like to say, unveiled. Do you find that there's any types of practices that you do in nature? We're going to talk about light language a little bit later, but when you're talking about trying to connect with a tree and your mind's going 1,000 miles an hour because you're trying to be out enjoying a walk in nature, but you're thinking about the next thing you have to do tomorrow at work. How can people begin to clear space to have those communications?
You can use toning. You could use prayer. You can ask for your guides and angels that work with you to come and surround you in light. You can envision that you are bringing in the light through your crown chakra on the top of your head. And in your mind, just envision that this light of the Creator is coming through you, running through your entire body, down your spine, down your legs, into the earth. And as if you had tree roots going to the core of Mother Earth. and then back up to you. And at first, it might seem like you're making this up, but just allow yourself to make it up and have fun and just feel what you feel. And it might take a time or two, but that's okay. It will happen.
That is so beautiful. And I remember when I first started trying to open my mind to different ways of doing things, I was always taught to look outside of myself. I was always taught to work harder, do more things. And then my prayers all went outside of me. What you mentioned a moment ago, you're talking about bringing it back in. You're talking about working directly with your angelic team, working with Yeshua or Jesus, working with the ascended masters, as many might refer to them, whether it's Buddha or Yogananda, whoever that is for you. How do you begin to be able to hear them? I will say this, I would always have my prayers go out, but I never got anything back until I learned how to quiet my mind and I began to pray in a little different way. How can people begin to ask for the answers that they're hoping to receive? I remember the first time it just dropped in, I thought, wait a second, you can actually hear something back. It was profound to me because I'd spent my whole life just throwing things out into the ether, and
Mhm.
hoping they landed somewhere. But to know that I can ask and then it comes back, which we're taught, ask and it shall be given. But
Mhm.
can you help people to understand that process and how maybe it's a little different than what we've been taught in some instances?
My suggestion with this would be to work from the heart and to envision that all that you're seeking is within you already, that it's not out there, it's all right here, and to work from this space. So even just putting your hands on your heart and sitting quietly for a couple minutes and then asking those that you resonate with. So if it's Jesus and your angels to come and be with you, to spend time with you, and ask them to allow you to feel their energy come through your body and field, and then ask your questions.
I love that so much. And I feel like so much of this knowledge and wisdom is coming back to us to teach us how to really connect, understanding that as Jesus healed using the palms of his hands, there's chakras in the palms of your hands, and you can actually activate those through energy work as you teach there at Mindful Living. So as people begin to get more curious, what of the modalities that you offer, do you see one that people start with typically, or really is it kind of a custom situation, case by case? Somebody comes in and you go, well, I think this modality would be best. Is that how it works?
I think what resonates for each person, everyone is different. So I think it's totally up to them.
As to when they come in, they just tell you what's going on, and then you decide what makes sense, and they just do they feel into that? Do they say, okay, I want to try Reiki or I want to try the integrated? I mean, for somebody that really knows nothing about any of what's the best step to begin with you if they call you tomorrow? What
Okay, if they're coming in for a session, then what I tell people is that I work by my intuitive senses, that I pray to be exactly what you need me to be that day. And usually what happens is a mixture of the modalities. And I don't know until I start asking, until I start working with the energy of each person, what is needed. And it's always
Yes,
perfect. Whatever it is, it's always perfect.
it's always perfect. And I think it's because you touched on that keyword intuition. So intuition is coming online for people. And we won't really get into the science behind that, but intuition, I like to say that if I feel it here, this gut instinct we've always been told about, that's intuition. But let's dive into that a little bit. Let's talk about how you can really begin to observe your thoughts and your surroundings and how you feel about things, and then how you turn that into discernment and intuition, especially in a time where we've got so much stuff coming at us through
Mhm.
social media and the news.
Mhm.
How do you suggest people begin to work with their intuition?
Your body is a barometer.
Oh, I love
So
that.
if you're watching something on social media and check into your body and see how you feel. Does it make you feel good? Does it draw a heaviness to you? or do you feel light? That's a good indication of whether or not it's serving you. As far as people coming in for a session, it always works out perfectly, but it's also up to them and their willingness to participate. Sometimes the body will resist, and I will ask that they put their walls and barriers down. And so that can make a huge difference in your ability to receive. So that's just another tip. If you've got your walls and barriers up, it's harder for you to receive. And so when I first started out, I would actually take my hands and my intention and put the walls and barriers down around me so that I could receive what was coming through.
That's amazing. And we're talking about this space that you've created there that's so beautiful at Mindful Living. When I walk in, I know others have commented, it feels so calming, but that is due to a lot of intention
Mhm.
that you've created. And earlier you said if you're looking at something on the news or on social media, even watching a movie,
Mhm.
and you begin to tap into that intuition, that discernment, if it makes you feel uncomfortable or fearful or angry, right? There's a lot of triggering things right now. Can you speak to how we begin to energetically entangle ourselves with that? Of course, quantum science is really defining this from a scientific perspective, but just in layman's terms to help people understand how do we accidentally entangle with the very things sometimes that we think we don't like, say politics, social media. That's one of my favorite. Somebody has made a post and you're triggered and you are commenting on it. Can you explain to people what entanglement looks like?
Well, you're engaging, you're choosing to engage. So that is up to you. I would ask the question first, does this serve me to engage? Is this for my higher path? And make a decision from there. There are ways that you can energetically put yourself in white light whenever you feel that you need to. A method that I like to use when I get triggered and I feel like I'm taking on something that maybe I don't need to is what I call the God fire, that I was taught by another practitioner. And I just envision a golden flame of fire that is of the creator source. And I step into it and ask that everything that is no longer serving me be cleared from my body and field.
That is amazing. I like to say sometimes that people walk around with a dirty coat of energy. It's real comfortable and, it's what they know and they don't want to take it off, even sometimes when they've come in for a session. But how can people walk around energetically with things they don't even know they're carrying? Can you give some scenarios of how people might be doing that very thing?
So, are you asking about how we make energetic connections with each other just by being wherever we are?
Let me give you an example. So I was with my hairdresser the other day and she said, some days I feel so drained. I said, you're probably picking up a lot of your clients' energy, especially if they come in and use you as a therapist for the entire time they're getting their hair done. So can you help people to understand how they should be more intentional with at least clearing or knowing that they have the potential to pick up other people's energy?
Well, if you're going into a situation and you know it's going to be that way, you can surround yourself with white light before you go in.
Okay.
I like to say yes, you're creating a bubble in a sense, but okay, make the bubble and have it around your body. But then I want you to take that bubble and expand it out as far as you can. Make that bubble as big as you can so that you're inside of it, but you still have all the space to move around. And that's keeping others' energy away from you at a distance. You can use.
So for people that don't really understand maybe what we're talking about, can you explain how you might be able to feel energy when you walk in a room?
Have you ever walked in a room and felt like everyone was sad? Have you ever
Yes.
walked in a room and you felt like everyone was mad about something?
or they
Yeah.
just had a fight, you can feel
Yes.
it. It's like it's hanging in the air.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You're
It's
feeling energy.
so if they're looking for other ways, I know we've given some really good tips today. You can clear your energy by walking barefoot on the ground. You can clear your energy by calling in your angels and asking them. You can use the God fire. What happens if you have a dense energy in your body? Maybe that's due to some of the foods you've been consuming, right?
Mhm.
Because I know people are also looking at different ways that energy becomes dense in the body. Are you seeing that people are beginning to look at their diet as well when they're starting to do this energy makeover?
Yes, that's a very good question too. You can bless your food. You know,
Lots of
the location that we're in, the best organics are not available to us, but you can
yes.
bless anything.
Let's talk about that because again, that's something that our ancient ancestors knew, and we think it's a simple blessing being grateful, and it is that. But there was
Mhm.
also a belief that they could bring whatever was in front of them into the highest wholeness for their body. And so they were actually energetically transforming the food.
Mhm.
If everything is energy, then we have the ability to do that as humans, but we weren't really taught about that. So if people are concerned, to your point, maybe about chemicals or pesticides or not having the freshest, with intention, which is something else you talked about, with intention, how can they bring that food into wholeness? Is there something that you recommend? Is there a practice that you do with your own food?
Mhm. You just said it. I say 3 times, please bring this food into wholeness.
I do
And
too.
there's a post-it on my refrigerator. Yes.
I do too. And I just envision just this netting coming, for lack of a better word, just netting coming down
Mhm.
that is just of divine light. And it's so different than the way that I grew up. I thought it was just something I needed to do because it was, what we were told to do. I didn't understand that there was actually an alchemical transformation that we were seeking to intend for the food that we consumed. What about water? Water is another thing that actually holds wisdom. That's another one of those fun things to get on. What do you do with your water, Debbie?
Absolutely the same thing. You can say, and if that prayer doesn't work for you, say your own prayer. It doesn't matter. It's your intention that's in your heart, and you're just asking for it to be cleared.
That
Very
is so
simple.
beautiful.
We don't have
And
to make it hard. We don't have to make it difficult or complicated.
I see a lot of people falling into fear because they're hearing about things that might be added to our food, added to our water, sprayed in the skies. They fall into fear. Can you help people to maybe have a different perspective?
Mhm. It's all about intention again, and using your choice to live in the energy that you want to live in. Fear doesn't feel very good.
No.
So if it helps you, you can actually contribute to all of these things that you see going on by using your action of prayer or whatever works for you to change the things that are causing you fear. If it's the contrails in the sky, you can go out and say a prayer to the sky to please clear our sky today. If that makes you feel better, if action is what you need, then do that.
I like to say things like, thank you for this awakening. Thank you for doing these things that are making people once again look at our skies and question, is this healthy? It's maybe a different way of looking at these things that are happening, but if they weren't happening, we wouldn't be reawakening to the need to connect with nature and all the things that are around us because we had gotten so busy and so focused on material things, we took our eye off of what really mattered, and now I think we're having to come back to the reconciliation of that didn't work out very well. Now we need to be paying more attention, mindful living, of what is around us and going into our bodies, and what we're providing for our families. So as as we're talking about water, we can also do these things. I hear that a lot of people connect when they're taking a shower. So as the body is coated with water, or perhaps you're going swimming, is there a different way that you can also seek to connect? You know, a lot of our movies show us that if somebody is trying to connect to other worlds, they'll be in a bath of salt water, right? So there's some myth and legend in there. What do people need to know about their connection with water and the divinity that it holds?
That they are mostly water, that you are mostly water,
Absolutely.
and finding a way for you to connect to that, whether it's putting your feet in the water, your body in the water, blessing your water. We really gratitude for the water.
Absolutely. I like to think of it as a conduit too. It's almost as if I really want to have an answer to something or get kind of a quick response, I'll ask in the shower because I notice that it's almost amplified my ability to
Mhm.
ask and answer, which is
Mhm.
fascinating. And that's why I love that we're having these conversations. You know, a couple of years ago, I know that you kind of moved over to Ambassador of the Spirit. Will you tell us a little bit about how that migration occurred for you? What happened in your life that made that shift occur?
Sure. Um, After quite a few years in meditation and starting to receive messages from Spirit, I was given that name by Spirit. And having a consistent, everyday, same time meditation practice and sitting and just asking, what are the messages today for the collective? What can I share with my brothers and sisters that might help them in some way? These are the messages that come each day.
And
And I
you
share
post
them.
those on Facebook, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Facebook and Instagram, yes.
And
Yes.
so
And
you
I,
mentioned, oh, go ahead.
I hope that they help in some small way.
So for people that aren't familiar with the collective, you said that, and I know that's kind of a buzzword too. We are genuinely, as we've been talking about energy, impacted by everyone's thoughts and actions. And um, going back to some of those ancient belief systems, they believed that we are all one, just divinely manifesting as individuals, and that we are coming back to a place of unity. So, can you help us maybe to understand a little bit better about what you mean when you say the collective?
The consciousness of the entire planet. And for example, we can tell when big traumas happen on the planet, it can be measured that the level of consciousness goes down when we are in grief. And so it makes sense that when the collective is in a state of disarray, as we are now, that we all feel it in some way in our body, and it manifests in different ways in each individual. Some might feel it in headaches, others may have
Right.
different pains in their body. Um, but releasing that and allowing yourself to step out of the collective in whatever form that is for you, whatever practice that is for you, whether it's going outside grounding, walking into the God fire, or calling in Saint Germain in the violet flame, whatever it is that works for you, you can change that. But the point is to realize that it's happening, that it's not just you, that you are feeling what is going on in the world, or your neighbor next door, or the person sitting next to you. A lot of times the feelings that we're picking up on don't even belong to us. And so, a great question when you start to feel something all of a sudden is, does this belong to me? Is this
Love that.
mine? Yes.
Love that. That is so phenomenal because oftentimes we are picking up on things that aren't ours, especially those of us that, you know, consider ourselves to be fairly, empathic. Even going to the mall sometimes can bring on anxiety for people. They feel like they're exhausted after they've walked through the mall and they don't even realize why. So I love that you really dove into the collective explanation to help people understand. You mentioned that there is a violet flame. I know a lot of people call on the violet flame. For people that aren't familiar, can you explain that a little bit? It's certainly been a valuable tool for me.
Mhm.
How might people find out what that is?
That is working with Saint Germain. That is the violet flame. I think of that as the male and the female energies combined for whatever you need. I use it mostly for clearing. And it's very simple. Use your intention that you are calling in Saint Germain with his violet flame. And if you can, envision that flame and see it flowing through your body in your auric field and clearing. And just you can say with your intention, please clear everything that doesn't belong to me, everything that is no longer serving me.
So let's talk about kind of the elephant in the room. As we clear as a collective, which is happening right now. And there's all sorts of markers that we could point to, whether it's prophecy, astrology. This time period that we live in right now is widely known to be a time of cleansing for all of the things that do not serve us as a collective. We see that in the falling away of the institutions and the structures that have kind of kept us in a form of enslavement for a long time. But it's also happening on an individual level. It's that as above, so below, as within, so without concept that we learn about in the principles of the Hermetic tradition. But a lot of people are losing things that they've been very attached to: relationships, loved ones, careers, homes. And this can be devastating. It's also often referred to as the dark night of the soul, where an individual loses everything that they've had an attachment to and they've got to rebuild. Can you help somebody that might be going through this see the beauty? Because that's where we talked about when we started this conversation. We're over here, all this loss is happening, and how do I get to the joy? So if somebody's going through that, where can they start?
Actually, Misty, that brings me to a question for you. Do you feel that when you have to do a total rebuild, that it was actually a contribution to you and your life?
I do now. I didn't feel that way several years ago when it happened, but I am so incredibly grateful for being at what I called rock bottom at the time, because I would certainly never be here. And it's like the analogy of the phoenix rising. Not only do you rise, but you rise stronger and more solidified than you ever were before. It's hard to build a foundation when it's broken, right? Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the greatest answer there. So many times when we're going through it, we can't see the other side, and we don't realize until later that this was actually the greatest gift.
Yeah, and it's like you said, one step at a time. I literally had to start one thought at a time, striving for the next positive thought, and the next
Mhm.
positive thought, and the next place to find gratitude. I did hear from one of the people that I love so much, Abraham Hicks. 17 seconds is all it takes to get yourself rolling pretty quickly in a manner of momentum. So you can either envision that you've got 17 seconds focused in a really positive direction, you're going to build momentum. Like she says, if you're up on the top of a hill and you put your car in neutral and you just cruise down, that's your momentum. Or you can choose 17 seconds of negativity. And I like to say that when you're on Facebook and all of a sudden you get an ad that pops up in front of you because you looked at red tennis shoes 3 days ago on Amazon and now it's popping up on your social media feed. This algorithm, we get frustrated with it, but the brain works the same way. It's this algorithm in your brain. Oh, you're thinking about negative things. Let me help you. And it brings more and more and more. And before you know it, you're falling into this victim state. And you've spent 20 minutes thinking about what a victim you are when it started as somebody cutting you off in traffic. It's so being the observer of your life, I think, is so key. Don't you find that just starting there is a really good place?
Absolutely. You have to be aware of the thoughts that you are feeding yourself. And, I tell people this does not have to be complicated. You could start with a sentence like, I love flowers. I love flowers. I love flowers. I love flowers. Whatever it is. I love the
Yeah.
color pink, whatever it is that is going to help you raise your vibration. And only you know that for you.
Absolutely. And sometimes, people find it really hard because they want to try to change whatever they have resistance to. In other words, I don't have enough money. And so they want to find a way to try to talk about money and raise their frequency. And you can't get there from here. You
Mhm.
have to think about, like you said, what are the things that I don't have any resistance to? I love my children. I love it when we take a vacation to the beach. These are all things that there are no argument to. And then you start there and you build and you build and you build and get your momentum going. And the things that you've got some resistance on, you kind of leave those over to the side, and then you work on your frequency in other areas. That took me a little while too. Money blocks are big for a lot of people.
Mhm.
So once somebody comes and they begin to move energy in their body, do you recommend practices of yoga, or can they do any type of exercise to continue? Is are there certain things that people can do to be mindful of how the energy moves in their body, or if they start to feel some type of an illness setting in, how do you recommend they begin to work with that if they're looking for holistic alternatives?
Absolutely. I would say that they do what resonates with them. Not everybody's going to resonate with yoga. So,
Sure.
you do what you like to do. That'll open your heart up. We know that illnesses, excuse me, manifest, excuse me, in the field around our body before they come into the physical. So if you are working with an energy practitioner, no matter who it is, they may be able to find that before it becomes in the physical and make a
Fascinating.
change. Hmm.
That's fascinating. And of course, like we mentioned, things like acupuncture, these modalities have been around for eons and they work with energy in the body. So, what we're talking about is nothing new. It's just a different way of looking at it. And one of the other modalities that I wanted to touch on before we wrap up today is light language. And so, this is something that I think a lot of people are very fascinated with. It's certainly something that not everybody knows how to do yet. So, when we talk about light language, how can we help people to understand what this is and why it's dropping in at this time?
Hmm. I believe that it is creation at its essence. It is where we came from. It is a way to change and move and channel energy from the deepest place within us that can create significant change.
And at the heart level, I believe that light language is understood, even if people don't understand how to interpret it just by hearing. The body at a cellular level understands. It's almost like the universal language. Would you agree with that?
Yes, very much so.
And so I think as we wrap up today, I think you're going to share some light language with us. Would you mind to share your intent with the light language prior to us being able to hear some of it? It is so beautiful. And before you even start, I just want to thank you and just give gratitude for all that you do. You're such a beautiful soul. But can you help us to understand the intent behind it?
The intention that I'm going to ask is that I am able to bring through a message that is wanting to come through, that will be a contribution to all that listen to it in whatever form that is for them, whatever they are needing at that time for their greatest and highest good. Atakoya manakayate, ita bakoto shnikataya, the kadeshtikaya dabre, Ikadaro minakaya kostia te, Tishnakaya te kosh, Bondarko birikarea, the kadekachikabadigesh, Ishnananoya manakade, Stikaya, but goodish the dos, Nakaya te the Kodamanakota de Yadish, Ish the Koto manakotea, Shikota de Adakadeshtikaya. Itakayo mono no shia te ataka te ataka shia. Istakayo mo kosto toshikata te. Atakaye the koya padukush. Atakaria manakare atakare atakadesh dis. Itakaya toshtikaya te obodoshia te. Isha tatata shikate atate. Isha katato omo koshti te. Ikoya tapaya tishtakoya te patakadesh. Asha te atade stashtate.
Thank you for that. That was so incredibly beautiful. I know that I've been working with clients who are having light language pop in for them. It's a little bit shocking when it starts to come through. I've had somebody say, I'm speaking a foreign language to myself and I don't understand it. And so, we're seeing people have these gifts come online. The gift of mediumship that dropped in for me about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And I thought I was going crazy when it first started happening. And now people's loved ones just kind of pop in. People are having light language come online. They're having their intuition, their energetic gifts, healing abilities coming online. If somebody has questions about this, I was in the rabbit hole for a couple of years. I'll just be totally honest. I was trying to figure out what was going on with me. Any resources that you might want to provide to people that are having these things come online?
The first thing I would say is you're not going crazy.
Yeah.
It's okay. You are just awakening to so many new things and so many new possibilities. If anyone has a question about what's happening, I'm happy to take a question. There's lots of resources now out there, much more than there were 10 years ago. If you have a specific thing going on, just send me a message and I'll see if I can't direct you.
And we are starting to put together some groups. We're going to be meeting. We are finding there's so many people now that are seeking these local resources that we're going to be meeting like on a monthly basis just to be able to allow people to get more information. There's some interviews coming up on Quantum Journey about sound bowl healing and shamanship. And I know that you host some of these classes there at Mindful Living. So as we begin to really build out this community portal, this light worker exchange.
Mhm.
If people want to get in touch with you, Debbie, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can do that at social media or Mindful Living, Paducah, Kentucky.
Okay,
Um, I can give you my number or my um, email. We can put
okay,
that in the link perhaps.
perfect.
But yes,
Absolutely.
we are building a community where people will be able to come and sit and have conversation about what's happening and we can share with each other. And I think that's going to be a great contribution to the community.
I love this. One of my favorite podcasts is Next Level Soul, and he always asks his guests, what was it like coming out of the spiritual closet? And I feel like that's all, what we're experiencing a little bit because the first thing people think is, oh my gosh, I don't want to go against my belief system. And so to be able to see that this is not going against, it is an enhancement too, or it certainly has been for me, to really be able to marry all of these things together has been a journey that I'm so excited about. Thank you for being with us today, for sharing your beautiful light language, and for just sharing all the gifts that you have. Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. Bye, everybody. Until next time.